Have you ever driven past an old junkyard and spotted a truck you couldn't even name? Something rusted, forgotten, just sitting there like a ghost from another era? America used to be overflowing with truck brands, dozens of them, companies you've never heard of, models that vanished without a trace, and some that were genuinely brilliant but just couldn't survive. Today we're counting down 20 forgotten American trucks that are no longer around. Some of these will shock you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. Number 20. The Isuzu Hombre. So here's a truck that most people have completely forgotten existed. The Isuzu Hombre rolled onto American dealer lots in 1996, and right from the start, it had an identity crisis. The Hombre wasn't really an Isuzu at all. It was essentially a rebadged Chevrolet S10 with some cosmetic tweaks borrowed from the Brazilian market version of the same truck. General Motors and Isuzu had this long, complicated partnership, and the Hombre was one of its stranger offspring. It looked almost identical to the Chevy it was based on. Same frame, same engines, same interior. The only real differences were some unique front-end styling and the Isuzu badge on the tailgate. Why would anyone walk past a well-known Chevy dealer to buy the exact same truck with an unfamiliar name? Most people didn't. Sales were dismal from day one. By the year 2000, it was gone, quietly pulled from the lineup with barely a whisper. Today, spotting one on the road is like finding a unicorn. The Hombre is the definition of a truck that time forgot. Number 19. The Mitsubishi Raider. The Mitsubishi Raider is one of those trucks that makes you wonder what the executives were thinking. Launched in 2005, this was Mitsubishi's attempt to crack the American midsize pickup market. But here's the twist. It was basically a Dodge Dakota wearing a Mitsubishi costume. Same platform, same engines, same everything underneath. Mitsubishi just slapped on a different grille and called it a day. The Dakota itself was a decent truck with V6 and even V8 options. The problem was that nobody associated Mitsubishi with trucks in America anymore. The brand had built the little Mighty Max in the 80s and 90s, and that was a genuinely fun compact truck. But the Raider was a completely different animal, bigger, heavier, and competing in a segment where Toyota and Nissan already had loyal followings. In its entire production run, Mitsubishi sold just over 20,000 Raiders. That's catastrophically low. By 2009, it was discontinued. The Dakota it was based on didn't last much longer either, ending in 2011. Today, the Raider is one of the most obscure trucks at any used car lot. Number 18. The Ford Courier. Before the Ford Ranger became America's favorite compact pickup, there was the Ford Courier, and most people have absolutely no idea it ever existed. The Courier debuted in 1972, and here's the thing that surprises people. It wasn't actually built by Ford. It was a rebadged Mazda B-Series truck imported from Japan and sold through Ford dealerships. This was Ford's answer to the growing popularity of small Japanese trucks that were flooding into America during the fuel crisis of the early 70s. Gas was getting expensive, and suddenly those little Datsun and Toyota pickups looked a lot more appealing than a full-size F-150. The Courier was small, light, fuel-efficient, and cheap. It came with a tiny four-cylinder engine that sipped gas like it was rationed. And for a while it actually sold reasonably well, but Ford had bigger plans. By the early 1980s, they developed their own compact truck from scratch, and that became the Ranger. Once the Ranger arrived in 1983, the Courier was history. It just disappeared. No farewell tour, no special edition. Gone. Today, finding a clean Ford Courier is incredibly difficult. Most were worked to death on farms and construction sites, then scrapped without a second thought. Number 17. The Dodge Ram 50. The Dodge Ram 50 might have one of the most misleading names in truck history. You hear Dodge Ram, and you think of a big, beefy American pickup. But the Ram 50 was actually a compact truck built by Mitsubishi in Japan. It first appeared in the late 1970s, originally called the D50, and it was Chrysler's way of competing with the small import trucks that were eating into their market share. The Ram 50 was genuinely a decent little truck. It was reliable, fuel-efficient, and surprisingly capable for its size. It came with a 4-cylinder engine and was available with 4-wheel drive, which made it popular with people who needed a small truck that could handle rough terrain. But it lived in a weird space. Dodge purists didn't love it because it was Japanese. Import truck fans didn't trust it because it wore a Dodge badge. It was caught in no man's land. Production continued through 2 generations until 1994, when the larger Dodge Dakota essentially replaced it. After that, the Ram 50 just faded away. It never achieved the cult following of a Toyota pickup or even a Mazda B-Series. It was just there, and then it wasn't. Today, these trucks are genuinely rare survivors. Number 16. The Chevrolet LUV. The name alone tells you everything you need to know about the era this truck came from. LUV. It stood for Light Utility Vehicle. But come on, this was the 1970s. Everything had to have a groovy name. The Chevy LUV launched in 1972, and just like the Ford Courier, it wasn't actually American-made. It was a rebadged Isuzu Faster, imported from Japan and sold through Chevrolet dealerships. General Motors needed a small truck to compete with the flood of Japanese imports, and rather than develop one from scratch, they simply borrowed one from their Japanese partner. The LUV was tiny by American standards. It came with a 1.8-liter 4-cylinder engine, making a whopping 75 horsepower. That's less than most lawnmowers today. But it was cheap, it was efficient, and it did exactly what a small truck needed to do. You could even get one with a 7.5-foot bed, which looked absolutely ridiculous on such a small truck. The LUV stuck around until 1982, when Chevy finally developed their own compact pickup, the S10. Once the S10 arrived, the LUV was immediately retired. Most of them have long since rusted away or been crushed, and spotting one today is a genuine rarity that makes truck enthusiasts do a double take. Number 15. The Dodge Rampage. Imagine if a Dodge Omni and a pickup truck had a baby. That's essentially what the Dodge Rampage was. Introduced in 1982, this was Chrysler's attempt at a car-based pickup, similar to what Chevy did with the El Camino and Ford did with the Ranchero. But the Rampage was much smaller and much less powerful than either of those. It was built on the L-body platform, which was the same platform used for the Dodge Omni and Plymouth Horizon. That meant front-wheel drive and a tiny 2.2-liter 4-cylinder engine making about 96 horsepower. This was not a truck for hauling serious loads. It was more like a car with a small bed welded onto the back. And honestly, it wasn't terrible at what it was designed to do. It was practical, fuel-efficient, and nimble in city traffic. There was even a performance version called the Rampage 2.2, which added some sporty touches. But the market just wasn't interested. Americans who wanted a truck wanted a real truck, and Americans who wanted a car wanted a real car. The Rampage was stuck awkwardly in between. Production ended after just 2 years in 1984. Only about 30,000 were ever built, and today they're among the rarest vehicles of the 1980s. Number 14. The Studebaker Champ Studebaker. Now there's a name that carries serious weight in American automotive history. This company had been building vehicles since the 1850s, starting with horse-drawn wagons. By the 20th century, they were making iconic cars. But trucks? Most people don't know Studebaker made trucks. The Champ was their last one, introduced in 1960. It was a clever piece of engineering born from desperation. Studebaker was running out of money. So engineers took the front half of the new Lark compact car, grafted it onto an existing truck chassis, and created something new on a budget of just $900,000. The Champ even introduced the sliding rear window to pickup trucks, a feature that eventually became industry standard. You could get it with a 6-cylinder or a V8, and it offered genuine car-like comfort. But Studebaker was dying. Sales never exceeded about 7,300 units in any year. By 1964, the South Bend factory closed, and the Champ disappeared along with the company. Fewer than 28,000 were ever built, and finding one that hasn't rusted away is a genuine treasure hunt. Number 13. The Chevrolet SSR. The Chevy SSR is one of those vehicles that's so weird, so completely out of left field, that you almost have to respect it. Launched in 2003, the SSR was a retro-styled pickup truck with a retractable hardtop. Yes, a convertible truck. It looked like something from the 1950s, with swooping fenders, running boards, and a bed so small it was almost decorative. The first models came with a 5.3-liter V8, making 295 horsepower. Later versions got the LS2 engine from the Corvette, bumping power to 390 horses. So it was fast, it looked wild, and it was a convertible. What's not to love? Well, the price. The SSR cost around $42,000, which was serious money for a truck that couldn't really truck. The bed was too small for anything practical, and the whole thing weighed over 4,700 pounds. It was a novelty, a conversation starter, but not a truck anyone actually needed. GM pulled the plug after the 2006 model year, having built around 24,000 units. Today, the SSR has a modest cult following among collectors, but for most people, it remains one of the strangest trucks Chevy ever made. Number 12. The Diamond T. Now we're going way back. Diamond T was an American truck manufacturer that most people today have never heard of, but for decades they were one of the most respected names in the business. Founded in 1905 in Chicago by C.A. Tilt, the company started building cars before switching exclusively to trucks in 1911. And they didn't just build trucks. They built beautiful trucks. Diamond T was famous for chrome accents and stylish cab designs that set them apart from the competition. During World War II, Diamond T built military vehicles that earned a reputation for incredible toughness. Their Model 969 Wrecker became legendary for recovering damaged tanks across Europe and North Africa. After the war, Diamond T continued building commercial trucks but struggled financially. In 1958, they merged with REO Motor Car Company to form Diamond REO. The combined company limped along, but the Diamond T name gradually disappeared. By the mid-1970s, it was gone completely. Today, a surviving Diamond T is a serious collector's item, but unless you're a hardcore truck enthusiast, you've probably never heard of them. Number 11. Brockway Motor Trucks. If Diamond T is obscure, Brockway is practically invisible. But this company was once one of America's most important truck builders. Founded in 1912 in Cortland, New York by George Brockway, the company built heavy-duty trucks that were famous for their durability and their distinctive bulldog-tough reputation. Brockway trucks were workhorses. They were built for the toughest jobs imaginable: logging, construction, garbage collection, municipal services. New York City and Philadelphia both relied heavily on Brockway trucks for their sanitation departments. The company was even ahead of its time in some ways. In the mid-1930s, Brockway developed a line of electric vehicles and is credited with creating the first sleeper cab for long-haul trucking. That's right. The sleeper cab that every cross-country trucker relies on today can trace its origins back to Brockway. But success attracted attention. In 1956, Mack Trucks purchased Brockway. For about 20 years, Mack kept the Brockway name alive, but eventually decided to consolidate. The last Brockway truck rolled off the assembly line in 1977. The Cortland factory closed, and an entire chapter of American trucking history ended. Today, there's a small but dedicated community of Brockway enthusiasts who preserve these trucks, but for the general public, the name means nothing. Number 10. The Hudson Pickup. When you think of Hudson, you probably think of the fabulous Hudson Hornet that dominated NASCAR in the early 1950s. What you probably don't think about is a pickup truck. But Hudson did make trucks, and they were genuinely interesting. Hudson offered pickup versions of their passenger cars starting in the late 1920s and continuing sporadically through the 1940s. The most notable were the trucks built on the Hudson Terraplane platform in the 1930s. These were car-based pickups with smooth, elegant styling that looked more like luxury vehicles than work trucks. Under the hood, they carried Hudson's reliable inline six-cylinder engines, and they rode on the same advanced suspension systems that made Hudson cars famous for their handling. But Hudson was always a smaller player in the automotive world. They couldn't compete with Ford and Chevy on price or volume, and their trucks were never a priority. By the time Hudson merged with Nash to form American Motors Corporation in 1954, the truck line was already dead. Today, a Hudson pickup is one of the rarest and most desirable classic trucks you can find. Auction prices for well-preserved examples have climbed steadily, but good luck finding one. Most were scrapped decades ago, and the handful that survive are closely guarded by their owners. Number 9. The Willys Pickup Truck. Everyone knows the Jeep. It's one of the most iconic vehicles in American history, born from the battlefields of World War II. But what most people don't realize is that Willys Overland, the company that built the original military Jeep, also made a full lineup of pickup trucks. The Willys pickup debuted in 1947, right after the war, and it was basically a Jeep with a truck bed bolted on. It came with four-wheel drive as standard, which was incredibly rare for a civilian truck in that era. The engine was a modest four-cylinder that wasn't going to win any races, but it was bulletproof. These trucks were designed for farmers, ranchers, and anyone who needed to get through rough terrain that would stop a conventional two-wheel drive pickup dead in its tracks. The Willys pickup also came in a two-wheel drive version for people who didn't need the off-road capability, but wanted the rugged utility. Production continued under the Willys name until Kaiser bought the company in 1953, and the trucks continued under various names into the 1960s. But by then, the big three automakers had caught up with four-wheel drive offerings of their own. The Willys truck faded away, overshadowed by the very Jeep brand it helped create. Today, these trucks are incredibly sought after by collectors, with prices climbing into serious money. Number 8. The Chevrolet 454 SS. In the late 1980s, the performance truck craze was just getting started, and Chevy decided to go all in. The result was the 454 SS, which debuted in 1990. The concept was simple and glorious. Take the biggest engine in the Chevy truck lineup and stuff it into a half-ton pickup. That engine was the 7.4-liter V8, the legendary big block that made 230 horsepower and 385 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers might not sound insane by today's standards, but in 1990, this truck was a monster. It came exclusively in black for the first couple of years, with a monochromatic exterior package, blacked-out grille, mirrors, and bumpers, and those bold 454 SS decals running down the bedsides. It rode lower than a standard pickup and drove like nothing else on the road. The problem was that it only came with a 3-speed automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, which meant all that torque could turn the rear tires into smoke at the slightest provocation. Chevy only built the 454 SS for 3 model years, ending production in 1993. Around 27,000 were built total. Today, Clean examples command serious prices at auction, and they've become one of the most collectible trucks of the 90s. Number 7. The Dodge Shelby Dakota. When you hear the name Shelby, you immediately think of Mustangs and Cobras. Carroll Shelby was the king of making fast things faster. But in 1989, Shelby turned his attention to something unexpected: a Dodge Dakota pickup truck. The result was the Shelby Dakota, and it was absolutely wild for its time. Shelby took the standard Dakota, which was already a capable mid-sized truck, and gave it the full performance treatment. Under the hood went a fuel-injected 5.2-liter V8, cranking out 175 horsepower. Shelby also installed a limited-slip rear axle, gas pressure shocks, a beefier front stabilizer bar, and an electric cooling fan. The exterior got the full Shelby treatment too. Bold graphics on the windshield, sides, and tailgate, blacked-out grille and bumpers, and distinctive fender flares. It looked mean, and it drove even meaner. Only about 1,475 were ever built, making it one of the rarest Shelby vehicles of any kind. Production lasted just 1 year. That's it. 1 year, and then it was gone. Today, the Shelby Dakota is a hidden gem in the collector market. While Shelby Mustangs command six-figure prices, you can still find a Shelby Dakota for a fraction of that, if you can find one at all. Number 6. The International Harvester Scout. The International Harvester Scout is one of the greatest what-if stories in American automotive history. Introduced in 1961, the Scout was essentially the first true sport utility vehicle, beating the Ford Bronco to market by 5 years and the Chevy Blazer by 8. International Harvester, better known for tractors and farm equipment, created something genuinely revolutionary. The original Scout was a compact, rugged, go-anywhere machine with a removable hardtop. You could strip it down to almost nothing and take it places no other civilian vehicle could go. It came with a 4-cylinder engine initially, but later versions got inline 6s and V8s. The Scout II, arriving in 1971, was larger and more refined, competing directly with the Bronco and Blazer. But International Harvester was drowning in debt. A devastating strike in the late 1970s and crushing losses from their agricultural division pushed the company to the brink. In 1980, Scout production ended. By 1985, the entire truck division was sold to what became Navistar International. The Scout disappeared, and for decades, it was largely forgotten by mainstream car culture. Recently, though, the Scout name has been revived for a new electric vehicle lineup, proving that some names are just too good to stay dead. Number 5. The Jeep Comanche. The Jeep Comanche is the truck that Jeep fans have been begging the company to bring back for decades. Introduced in 1986, the Comanche was a compact pickup based on the Cherokee platform, and it was genuinely one of the best small trucks of its era. Unlike most compact pickups that used a body-on-frame design, the Comanche used unitized construction that gave it better handling and a smoother ride than almost anything in its class. It also inherited the Cherokee's legendary four-wheel drive system and the bulletproof 4.0-liter inline-six that became one of the most celebrated engines in Jeep history. The Comanche could go off-road with the best of them and then cruise comfortably on the highway all day. So why did it fail? Chrysler had purchased American Motors in 1987, and they already had the Dodge Dakota. Having two compact trucks competing internally made no sense. The Comanche was starved of updates and marketing. By 1992, production ended. Fewer than 190,000 were built over 7 years. Today, clean Comanches are becoming increasingly valuable as collectors realize how special they were. The truck that Jeep abandoned might be the best truck Jeep ever made. Number 4. The GMC Syclone. The GMC Syclone is hands down one of the most insane trucks ever built. Launched in 1991, this wasn't just a fast truck. It was one of the fastest vehicles on the road, regardless of how many wheels or doors it had. The Syclone was based on the GMC Sonoma compact truck, but everything underneath was completely transformed. It got a turbocharged 4.3-liter V6, making 280 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque, paired with an all-wheel drive system. 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.3 seconds. In 1991, that was faster than a Ferrari 348, faster than a Corvette. Car and Driver magazine famously put the Syclone up against a Ferrari in a drag race, and the truck won. It was a sensation. But GMC only built 2,961 of them, all in a single model year. They were expensive, impractical for actual truck work because the lowered suspension limited payload, and the turbo system required careful maintenance. None of that matters to enthusiasts today. The Syclone has become one of the most sought-after collector trucks, with prices reflecting its legendary status. Number 3. The Chevrolet El Camino. The Chevy El Camino is one of those vehicles that people either absolutely love or completely scratch their heads over. Is it a car? Is it a truck? The answer is yes. Introduced in 1959, the El Camino was Chevy's response to the Ford Ranchero. The idea was simple: take a full-size car platform, chop off the trunk, and replace it with a pickup bed. The first generation was gorgeous, riding on the same platform as the iconic Impala, but it only lasted 2 years before being discontinued. Chevy brought it back in 1964, this time based on the Chevelle, and that's when the magic happened. The El Camino could be ordered with the same engine options as the Chevelle, including the legendary SS packages. That meant you could get one with a 454 big block V8, making up to 450 horsepower, a truck that could run quarter-mile times that would make muscle car owners nervous. The El Camino continued through 5 generations until Chevy killed it in 1987. Despite repeated rumors and fan petitions, it's never come back. The car-truck hybrid that defined an entire genre remains stubbornly retired, leaving behind a legacy that grows more legendary with every passing year. Number 2, the Ford Ranchero, before the El Camino, before the Subaru Baja, before any of them. There was the Ford Ranchero. Introduced in 1957, the Ranchero essentially invented the car-truck hybrid segment in America. Ford took the full-size passenger car platform and created something entirely new, a vehicle with the front half of a sedan and the back half of a pickup. Ford marketed it brilliantly, emphasizing that it could do the work of a truck while riding like a car. The first Ranchero shared its body with the station wagon. It was elegant, practical, and surprisingly capable. In its first year, Ford sold over 21,000 units, a huge success. The Ranchero went through 7 generations over 22 years. It shrank to the Falcon platform in the early 60s, then moved to the Fairlane and Torino platforms. By the 70s, you could get a Ranchero GT with a 429 Cobra Jet V8 that turned this hybrid into a genuine drag strip terror. Production ended in 1979, and Ford has never brought it back, despite decades of speculation. The Ranchero proved that Americans would buy a vehicle that defied categories, and every car-truck hybrid that followed owes its existence to Ford's original gamble. Number 1, the Chevrolet S10 EV. And here we are at number 1, with a truck that was so far ahead of its time that the world literally wasn't ready for it. The Chevrolet S10 EV, launched in 1997. General Motors built a fully electric pickup truck in the late 90s. Almost 3 decades before the electric truck boom of the 2020s, GM quietly produced what was essentially the first mass-produced electric pickup in history. The S10 EV was born from the same technology as the infamous GM EV1 electric car. Engineers took the powertrain from that sedan and dropped it into a compact S10 pickup body. It was front-wheel drive, which is almost unheard of for a truck. It had a 114 horsepower electric motor and initially came with a lead-acid battery pack, giving roughly 44 miles of range. A later upgrade to nickel-metal hydride batteries nearly doubled that. But here's where it gets tragic. GM only built around 492 of these trucks, and most were leased to fleet customers. When the leases expired, GM recalled most of them and had them crushed. The same controversial fate that befell the EV1. Only about 60 were sold outright, and a handful survive today as some of the rarest trucks ever built. The S10 EV proved that electric trucks were possible decades before Tesla, Rivian, or the Ford Lightning existed. It was the future, built too early, and deliberately killed before it could grow up. That makes it the most tragically forgotten American truck of all time. And there you have it, 20 forgotten American trucks that are no longer around. From tiny rebadged imports to electric pickups that were decades ahead of their time, these trucks represent chapters of American history that most people have overlooked. Which one surprised you the most? Did we miss any forgotten trucks that deserve a spot? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this ride through trucking history, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.